I'm Allison Colarosi, here with my husband, Dr. David Colarosi, the psychologist, and we're here for Shrink Wrapped, where we talk about popular psychology, things that are happening, and also answer listener questions, and mostly my questions. Right?
Yeah, that's right. So we are. So we've got this on YouTube. It's also a podcast. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts. And this is episode 6. I can't believe we've already got five completed. So it's been fun.
Not a fuss or a fight.
No.
Okay.
So what do you want to talk about? How have you been?
Well, I've missed you.
I've missed you too.
But while you've been gone, I've been killing the game.
So I went on every year my family goes on a big fishing trip. This year we went to Yellowstone. I was gone for 6 days, which left Allison at home taking care of things. And then I've been home for 3 days, and I'm leaving tomorrow morning to go to California for 4 more days.
Yeah.
So it's been rough.
It's been rough, and I work full time, so Zoom calls, my little short people, and a household and 2 dogs. It's a lot. It's just nonstop. I am so tired at the end of the day.
But I did a wonderful job, like preparing the house and setting up for success before I left.
You did not.
Okay, we've been arguing about this because I feel like I really did a good job cleaning the basement.
I give you a D.
And she gives me a D, but I really felt like I put my best foot forward on that.
So if I were to leave for 6 days,
yeah,
I like have meals prepared for you. I go grocery shopping for you. Things are like buttoned up. There is dog food for sure. It's just not the same level.
I agree. I agree. But I cleaned.
And then the tree guys came and I didn't even know what to say to them. They're like, so we're supposed to do this and this, and I was like, I have no idea. And he's in the bad country.
Yeah. But I should get credit because I obviously was dealing with the tree guys.
After I had called them and set it up. So
all right, I'm gonna get skewered again about emotional burden.
But we're gonna really drive that point.
I'm working on
We're gonna drive it home. Mm-hmm. All right, so it's been rough. I don't want you to go. I hope you enjoy the wedding. Wear a mask.
Yeah, it's been rough, and I think it's been especially stressful for you because in the midst of me being gone, you also found out that Denver Public Schools is now not going to go back full time. They've actually delayed the start, and when they do start, they're probably going to go back part-time or virtual, and there's a lot of chaos.
They're going to start virtual, and then they have to meet certain metrics. I went on they had a call today about it, and you have to make a decision on Monday whether or not your kid is going to go virtual or they're going to go virtual, possibly go back to school, but you have to make the decision. And I feel like it's such limited information. I'm sure the schools are reeling and trying to keep their teachers safe and the students safe. One of the questions came up is that the reason they can't do outdoor school is because they have to keep the kids safe.
From what? The sun?
Like someone coming on campus or something and being like something else to deal with. So they have a lot of things. I think some days during this whole quarantine thing, I really feel like I am killing it. And then other days, I feel like it's so heavy. Like when they announced that Denver Public Schools wasn't going back, I felt like an elephant sat on my chest. And you weren't here, and I just sat there for a second being like, and then like all of the next door people are like getting nanny.
Next door people.
It's an app for your neighbors. They're like getting it out, like phone calls are going out, but I just feel like so overwhelmed by like, I'm not sure. So anyway, we're working through that, and I'm sure a lot of people are, and it makes me nervous.
Yeah, it's been so my cousin and another friend that came on the trip are both teachers. And so we were talking a lot about this, and I was expressing frustration because on my end, it's like the data doesn't seem to be supporting the idea that kids get COVID, and if they do, it's pretty questionable whether or not they pass it, but they probably do a little bit. And I was like, I don't understand why there's this reticence to get back to school. And then my cousin made a good point, which is, what about the teachers? Like the teachers, unlike, a nurse or a physician, they didn't sign up to be kind of in risk in this way when they decided to become teachers. And so for us to all of a sudden be like, hey, get back out there and take care of our kids, it definitely puts an undue burden on them. And they're getting pay cuts because tax dollars are down. So in addition to them being asked to go put themselves at risk and put their families at risk, they're also getting paid less. It's not like they can, I was thinking, well, maybe because we need them more, maybe we can pay them more.
It is a crazy, because one of the things they mentioned on the call was that what happens if it's the teacher that gets sick and there's 25 kids in the class, then they have to scramble and get another educator.
Yeah.
It's a total nightmare, whatever side you fall on. And I think where I'm at emotionally, I'm very concerned about the teachers. I'm also concerned about the students. And then I'm also concerned about, the chasm it can cause, socioeconomically by kids not being in school, because certain kids are not able, the best chance they have at a healthy adult are their teachers and the interactions they have at school, or the best chance that they have at getting 3 square meals a day is from school, which is really sad. But now now they are delivering, or they are providing meals, but then if the school buses aren't going to school, how is the kid gonna get? It's so much. And then they need to have internet. Denver's providing all the computers to the kids and hotspots.
Mm-hmm.
But I still feel if, I don't know. I just feel they don't have the support.
There's no question. If you're a single parent, and you've got 1 or 2 kids at home, and you have to go to work, and your kid's not able to go to school, you are going, in many cases, may not be able to afford to have, a nanny or a nanny share come in. Your kid's going to be stuck at home by themselves. And so for me, when you talk about a chasm, I think the chasm is those kids may not get the same level of care or education that a kid that's able to go to a private school or get a nanny or all those kinds of things would receive. They'll be, once they're out of the system in that way, I think it can be more difficult for them to grow and develop.
Yeah. I feel very fearful about it all, and I see, in this instance, I see everybody's side. It all makes sense to me, and I don't know what the best answer is. And it's crazy. Anyway, let's talk about a happier topic.
Can I say one thing about it? I do want to, I don't know what the society was that came out, but Academy of Pediatrics or somebody came out and was talking about the not economic, but the impact on kids not to be able to be social for that time. Mm-hmm. And I just want to validate that. For me, that's what, for our kids, for Enzo, who's our 5-year-old, that's what I'm worried about. I'm less worried about the academic piece, but I am concerned about him being continually exposed to other kids and relationship development and all that kind of stuff. And to me, that's a major miss if we're not able to provide that for him.
So when we were on the super serious quarantine lockdown for 8 weeks, I felt like Enzo was sadder.
Yeah, for sure. I thought he was too.
Cause I just couldn't chase him as much as he wanted. And I would have to chase him for hours.
Yeah, that'd be that's a full-time job.
So I could already see. I think our other one was, our little guy was totally happy no matter what.
Yeah, the 2-year-old was good.
All right, so thank you for humoring me on that topic.
What do you?
I have a couple. We're gonna take Inadequate Deb's question and also Katie May's question, but I'd like to start with ghosting first.
Which is your question?
Which is my question.
So what's the question?
Why do people ghost, and why is it hurtful?
Well, can you define ghosting?
So ghosting is when you're in a relationship, either romantic or a friendship or family member, and all of a sudden there's zero contact and zero reason why. It's just like they died and went away. And I feel like you mourn it that way.
If you've been ghosted.
If you've been ghosted.
Yeah, so I always hear ghosting, like if you're like on, if you're on one of the dating apps, you have a couple dates and you're tired of that person, instead of going through the burden of calling the person and saying, hey, you're great, but I don't want to spend any more time with you, you just lose their number and you ghost them. But I think it can be pretty damaging if you're in a closer relationship, like if it's a family member or a friend or someone that you have to interact with frequently, and they all of a sudden bail on you and you're left sort of wondering what went wrong. I think it can be pretty painful because there's this sort of feeling of, where did I misstep? How did I go sideways? You feel, the unknown creates more distress than if you actually had the conflict.
This, like, to quote Brene Brown, the story you tell yourself.
Yeah, well, you start telling yourself multiple stories, right? And sometimes it can be that they're intentionally ghosting you, and other times it can be like we had talked about earlier, that it may feel like, I wonder if to my friends, if it feels like I periodically ghost them, not that I have any intention of not talking to them, I just get distracted with stuff and I'm not good about, staying in contact with people. So there are people that I went to high school with that I periodically check in with, and I'll go 6 months and like just simply forget to reach out, and I let that relationship kind of go downhill. So I wonder if those people feel like I'm ghosting when I wonder if they tell themselves a story that's not true. Ghosted.
Yeah. I feel like, and you could probably comment on this, but I feel like friendships are like take just as much work as like romantic relationships, and you really have to nurture them.
Yeah. But so I described ghosting. I was saying, in some cases it's not it's not always intentional, but sometimes it is intentional. And I do think in a friendship or a closer romantic relationship, it's a semi-aggressive, passive-aggressive even style of, saying screw you, right? Because you know that you're creating that distress for someone.
But in your way, you don't know. Like you don't think you are. You just kind of move.
So on. I don't know that I think ghosting is intentional. I don't intentionally ghost. I just space the relationship. But I'm saying if I'm in a relationship with someone for 6 months and I get tired of them, instead of breaking up with them or instead of telling them that I'm frustrated with them, if I just discontinue the contact intentionally, that's kind of passive aggressive, right? I know it's going to be uncomfortable for them, but I don't want to have the conversations. It's passive aggressive, or maybe it's conflict avoidant. You're putting a lot of distress or pain on the other person and trying to avoid it all yourself.
Yeah.
And I would argue that in those kinds of relationships, instead of ghosting, you owe it to that person to communicate why you're upset or why you don't want to talk to them anymore.
Well, Mel Robbins had a really good quote today.
Who's Mel Robbins?
She's the person that wrote 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 Blast Off, that book.
Oh, okay. I don't know all I can tell you is what my wife does is like when she gets up, Allison gets up 5:30 every morning to go work out.
4:30.
I'm asleep. But when she can't get out of bed, she goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off, and then she just jumps out of bed. I am not wired that way, but that's how she gets up. And that's from that book?
It's from that book.
Oh.
I love that. It's called The 5-Second Rule. If you haven't read it, it's good. And actually, I really enjoy following her on Instagram. She's inspiring. But her quote today was, "How people treat you is not a I'm gonna screw it up, but it's like it's not a reflection on you. It's a reflection on them, basically." Mm-hmm. And so why?
Yeah.
So I just misquoted that, but I love that because it's true. Like if someone's ghosting you, then they're like have their own stuff.
They got their own issue.
They got their stuff.
Yeah.
Like they're feeling insecure about something, or they're hiding some narcissism or something.
Well, speaking of ghosting, I heard that you got ghosted by a certain someone.
My friend, yeah.
No.
Oh,
Jeez.
Oh yeah. Well, I thought he was my friend. So I got ghosted by Dave Hollis on Instagram, and it broke my heart a little. Like I felt like, I really liked him. We've been going through a hard season.
Yeah.
We've been going through a hard season. And so it wasn't my finest moment.
Wait, so what? Yeah.
I'm going to tell him. He wrote some obnoxious, what I thought was obnoxious on Instagram. So I just wrote a comment that said, you suck. I feel like that.
And that was all you said.
That's all I said. But then after that, like I told David, I think Dave Hollis got rid of his Instagram, and he didn't. My Dave can see Dave Hollis's Instagram. All my friends can see it. Not me. I have been ghosted because I wasn't my best self.
Here's what I would say is if I were Dave Hollis's friend, if I was his, if he was consulting me on how to manage his social media, I would do the exact same thing. I would just go through my Instagram account or whatever, and anybody who said something negative, I would just cut him out because he's got so many people. I am sure you're not the only one to tell him that he sucks, and I bet that that's pretty mild for his.
Even so.
But I can't tell you. Are you excited about it? It's kind of a cool thing. Like at least he knows he at least thought about you for a second for him to unfollow you.
He took a picture with me at Rise. He knows who I am.
Yeah, I'm sure. I bet you he's sad about losing that relationship.
Well, if you read his book, you would know that he does get sad about people writing negative things, and then he wants to come over and have dinner to prove that he's not negative.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are you once you've been blocked on Instagram, can you be unblocked?
I don't know.
Can you work your way back in?
I don't know. Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, because that wasn't nice of me.
Will you talk? And you are still reading Rachel Hollis's Sunday emails, right?
Yeah.
I haven't read those.
She got a dog.
Oh, I did read that one. Is that the last one you read?
I think her last one was about hostess gifts or something when you bring to a party, which seemed very out of like, who's going to a dinner party right now? Oh. It seemed out of touch. Oh. Like, we're not talking about your divorce, and we're talking about dinner parties, and we can't, like, what is happening? So, anyway, so now on to listener questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Inadequate Deb had a question about teaching about mob mentality to her kids. And that's kind of a hot buzzword in Trump's world right now, is mob mentality. So I don't know if you want to talk about it in that sphere or... I saw her about like groupthink.
Yeah, so I saw her question, and I think, and sorry if I butcher this, Inadequate Deb, but first of all, every time I see your name, I always want to tell you, I think you probably are adequate. It seems like it's just sad.
You're enough.
Her name is not Inadequate Deb.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
not
great name, great.
Yeah, okay. It's not. Yeah, you just have Inadequate Deb. It's not inadequate. So I think what she was saying is she has a daughter who she wants to make sure doesn't buy into or follow mob mentality, and so she wants to advise her daughter about how can her daughter know when she's in a mob, and how can she think for herself. And so I think it's a great question, and I've thought a lot about sort of what goes into that, and I don't have like some research study, or I'm not certain about my conclusion here, so I'm just sort of going off the cuff, which is to say, I would argue that mob mentality is actually really adaptive. People are by nature very tribal, and if you think about kind of the evolution of our history, there was a time that it was really important for us to be in tribes. And when you're in a tribe, it is adaptive for you to operate as a single unit, and that's protective. If you just go out on your own and think independently, that can be really dangerous, right? But as society has evolved, that strategy of just tying into a tribe or a mob can be maladaptive. So I feel like it's ingrained in our DNA to work as a group all of the time, when now we probably have the ability and should be more intentional about thinking independently. So that's just to say, I think that's why mob mentality exists. And then as far as what to tell your daughter, I would say that it's obviously encourage her to think independently and always challenge her. I would tell her to always challenge herself to think outside of the box and not just do what other people are doing. But that's pretty difficult, especially for a teenager. It's pretty difficult to find yourself and be different than everybody else. It's hard. I think a better challenge would be to also say, make sure that you're picking the right tribe. In high school, throughout your life, you will always find yourself in little cliques and tribes. And I think the best you can do is curate that tribe. Make sure you're picking the right people so that you are elevating your game, as opposed to, just always finding the lowest common denominator and putting yourself at risk.
Always, never be the smartest person in your group.
Yeah.
Never be the most fit.
Yeah, so if I think about high school, there were lots of groups that I could be a part of, and I'm happy I was part of the group that I associated with, because I think that group as a whole, that mob, made some good decisions, and that helped me. And if I had been in a different group and didn't recognize it, I think my life would have been very different. Mm-hmm. You too?
Me too, yeah. And also, I think that, based on my data, I have shown that I am nonconformist.
Yes, you are. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's easy for her to go. You more than most, I think, are comfortable doing things differently than other people. I
like to do things. I'm not that I purposely do it different, but I'm not going to go with the grain to go with the grain.
I would actually, if I was gonna, I'm not sure I totally agree with that. So part of my job is to evaluate leaders, but when they're hired into a company. So Allison's taken some of the tests that I use, and one of the tests shows that she doesn't conform to rules. And I think that's where I would say, I think you push back on rules or guidelines. I think you like to push back on rules or guidelines.
That don't make sense.
Institutional rules, you are really quick to go, that's stupid, and not do that rule, not follow that rule. But you are super, super, more than like anybody I know, invested in being part of a team and being part of a group and feeling connected to people. So I don't know that you can say you don't want to be on the outside of groups. You want to be outside the rules.
Yeah,
At least that's
true.
how I think.
Yeah. I think that's good.
You're like the world's most social person.
I'm social, but I think I'm also an introvert at the same time. I feel like I'm both. You
can be both those things. Yeah.
I'm a mixtrovert.
Yeah. Okay.
How do you call it?
I don't know, but I like mixtrovert. I think there is a term for that. So what do you think about that answer for not an adequate Deb?
I thought that was good. The other, Katie May's question.
Wait, but what do you think? Do you have a thought for her? I don't want to just be the only one that responds.
No, I thought it was good. I mean, I think you would say all the things that I would say. Mob mentality is hard, right now, because if you... right now I feel like we live in a world where there's no tolerance for a differing opinion on either side. So we're so polarized now. So if you're part of the Democratic mob, you can't really have a differing opinion than that. And I feel like the same as the conservative side. And it's really unfortunate, because I feel like because of that, you're labeled and then you're stereotyped, and dialogue's not happening. In Brene Brown's new book, she talks about I think it's called Braving the Wilderness or something, but she talks about how, because people are so separated in that way and in their mobs, people are actually lonelier, because they're not having conversations and they're automatically assigning stereotypes to other people. Uh-huh. Which is sad, and it does make you lonelier.
Maybe that'd be a good book for not an adequate Deb's daughter to read.
I think that book would be great for her to read.
What's it called?
I'm sorry, guys.
I'll link it below. It's Brene Brown. I'll just put it in the notes.
Well, I can pull it up real fast, guys. Braving the Wilderness. I was right. Brene Brown.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really good.
All right, and then you have one for Katie May.
Yes.
All you've got is...
Katie May asked you a question. She is severely disabled, and she is a caretaker that is also her boyfriend. So, Katie, I'm assuming you're getting paid by him.
No, she's paying him.
I'm sorry, you're paying him to take care of you.
Or the state could pay him.
Yeah, he's being paid for this job. And she is a very positive person from what she says, but he is very negative, and it seems like he's resentful about having to take care of her and do stuff for her, and also complains, she says, from morning to night. And it's bringing her down and also making her feel negative. And she wants to know how to deal with it.
So first of all, Katie May, thanks for the comment. And when I read that comment, one of my very first jobs I had when I was starting off as a therapist was to work at a place that had me. I would go to different homes of people that were disabled that couldn't leave their house for whatever reason, and I would do treatment for them or do therapy with them. And so I saw this dynamic a lot where you'd have this person in their house and then their caregiver that was both romantically involved. So what would usually happen is they would be in a romantic relationship and one party would get hurt, or the romantic relationship would start with the one party hurt, and then the boyfriend or girlfriend would get training and would become the caregiver. That's important because these caregivers are not people that decided on their own, I want to be a caregiver, and hopefully the state can pair me up with the right person. They were paired, and then the person became a caregiver. And I assume that, Katie May, that's probably what happened. I'm guessing that's what happened for you. Because what happens is the level of care can be good or it can be bad, but it can be very difficult for a caregiver to live that life if that's not what they always wanted to do. And sometimes they do it and they're happy to do it because they really love the person, but it's hard. And so I can understand why your caregiver can be really negative. So that dynamic happens. I think it's a very common dynamic, but I want to say that I'm also proud of you for calling it out and not being okay with it, because what I saw a lot when I was working in that world is the disabled person saying, I'm lucky I've got this caregiver, and so I'm just going to suffer and deal with whatever, asshole I have in my life. And the reality is you don't have to do that. You really are the employer, and you really should advocate for yourself. So I don't know how bad it is, but let's just say it's on the extreme, and it's to the point where we would describe it as being emotionally abusive, and you're miserable in the house. Even though you may love that person, you still have the ability and the responsibility to get the right kind of care, and you can notify the state that the care you're receiving is not what you need, and you can get another caregiver to come in, and your boyfriend can go pursue another job and still be your boyfriend. I think that's an option that people rarely exercise, because you have this sort of a meshed relationship where you both feel dependent on each other and you can't really advocate for yourself. So the first thing I would say is, if it's that severe, advocate for yourself. The second thing I would say is, I think you want to be as intentional as you can about reaching out to people outside of your caregiver for support. So you had said in your comments, I think, that you're, reading books or watching positive movies or listening to positive music. All those things work as well. But I would go further to say, join an online book club, do what you can to go, meet other people outside in the community. I don't know exactly what your situation is, but the more you can reach out and expand your sphere of your circle of influence, the sort of less significant your caregiver will become. You can kind of minimize him by reaching out to other people. And then the last thing I would say, obviously, and I think you've done this, but be crystal clear about what you expect from him and the level of positivity and support you expect from him. That's a big part of being a caregiver, is the emotional side, the psychological side. And if he is just being so negative constantly, he's not doing his job.
Sounds like he resents his role, and I don't think that's healthy for you, because it's not your fault. You're doing the best you can.
Mm-hmm.
And so honestly, you need someone in there that wants to be that person for you. And it's okay. Your boyfriend he can play a different role in your life. And maybe he will be less resentful and happier. And then you'll have someone that is paid to do that job and wants to do that job.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people that they really feel a calling to be a caregiver. So
yeah,
I would encourage you to maybe think about that, because you don't need people bringing you down.
Yeah.
The whole world can bring you down. You don't need that.
Yeah, I agree.
So
and I also feel like I should say, just as you're talking, like I feel like we're, crapping on the boyfriend, and that's just from the paragraph that we read. Obviously, I've not met you, I've not met your boyfriend, so I also feel like we should hedge a little bit and say we don't know your circumstance, but those are some thoughts that we have just based on what we read.
And thank you for writing in questions.
Yeah.
It helps us. It helps us, and it helps the show, and it helps us formulate some good, thoughtful questions.
Yeah.
So we appreciate it.
Please keep the comments coming. Again, as always, like and subscribe. And if there's anything that you would like us to do differently, or a way that we could structure this better, this is still evolving. And the more feedback we can get, the better. We really do read all the comments.
Yep.
So.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was Trainwreck.